and make it. So, welcome to today's class in day 4. Our task for today is to look at organisational steps that can help us to be effective leaders. And at the end of today, I would like you to write down some of the organisational steps that you can take to be an effective leader. To clarify the tasks that you will want to achieve as a youth leader or a church leader or a music group leader or a women's leader. To clarify the vision that you have, such as to build one of the best music groups or one of the best churches or one of the best youth groups that effectively meets the needs of the church or the youth. To set the goals, such as how many people do you want to bring together? Where do you want to bring together? To set the place and the time that you'll gather and what you're set to achieve. You won't always find it easy to achieve these goals, but if you don't have the goals, then you won't know where you're moving towards and why. And sometimes we need to reflect more deeply on the goals, such as if we build a church and a youth group, we need to think, why? Not just to gather the people, but what do we seek to achieve? And are there lots of different ways that we can achieve our goals? We could resource people in a variety of different ways. We could introduce people to a wider number of others who could help them in their journey. And to achieve these goals, we often need to build a team. So think about who are the members that you can bring into the team. And then we need to understand what are the needs of each member in the team. So it's important to listen to others. The Apostle Paul reminds us that we are part of a body, the body of Christ. And so each member has something to tell us, just as a body has an eye, an ear, hands, different parts that can tell us different things. So each of the different members of a body have something to tell us. Listen to others. Also, in order to regularly remind ourselves of what we're doing, keep a calendar, make a to-do list, what needs to be achieved. Clarify the resources you need, such as the people with certain talents, the place, the time, and the team. Communicate well and communicate often. Email, phone, keep in touch. In order to build a team and to build relationships, regularly meet with them and communicate. And I have made an email list and keep phone numbers and set times to meet with people in order that I might repeatedly and regularly keep in contact with people. And I also encourage you to interact with scholarly resources in order to show that you are locating and thinking about scholars who've written on these matters. And Google Scholar is a great source of scholarly resources, and I encourage you to go to and interact with Google Scholar in order to better equip and resource yourself in order to better engage with the insights there. So if we're looking today at organisational leadership in church and theologies that can help us understand, doing a Google Scholar search on this can help locate resources, and then we can cite the resource, make a copy of that, and then we can also go and view the various resources. We can locate books that have been written on leadership and how we can better engage with insights that scholars have brought. So I encourage you to use Google Scholar to locate some resources today. Christian leadership within churches and youth and parachurch and school, music and other reasons for gathering and in mission are often framed around spiritual and pastoral and theology and Bible, emphasizing prayer and calling and discipleship, servanthood, character formation, spiritual authority. And yesterday we looked at many of these ways in which we as leaders grow and develop. These are important, But also important is the organisational realities. How effective are we at organising the different gatherings that we have been given leadership responsibility for? To ensure healthy, accountable, resilient communities in a world that is complex, changing, where volunteers are getting worn out, where young people are growing older, where financial pressures remain on us, we need to be well organised. And today's big question is, how do you organise well? We need skills, we need knowledge, and we need to develop our abilities, which we all have. Let's turn now to a scholarly resource by Weems on church leadership. And you can find more by putting this into Google Scholar and also into Google as well. So you can locate Weems' resource, and if you put into just Google, you can find other resources as well, including a copy of Weems' book on Google Books, and you can find other resources as well there. So Lovett Weems has written an excellent book on church leadership, in which he talks about the way in which leadership is a channel through which God moves, and that it's important for the leader to capture something of the vision that God has for your particular group and activity, to build a team to help achieve that vision and to understand and listen to the different members of the team, to build a culture that embodies that vision, to ensure accountability and integrity, and to achieve the goals that God has given you. So I encourage you to spend some time reading and reflecting on resources such as this. Like good stewards of God's grace, we need to be effective. And as 1 Peter chapter 4 says, like good stewards, by the grace of God, we should learn and develop skills to serve one another so that the gifts that God has given might be able to be shared and effective. James Montgomery Burns, in his book on leadership, said one of the most universal cravings of our time is a hunger and a compelling for creative leadership. And you, like I, may be looking around for those who are leading a group and leading a church and leading activity, who know what they're doing, who have insight, who have experience. And God is training you and I up to also be people who know what we're doing and have experience and knowledge and understanding. There is a leadership crisis at the moment in which there's a need for those who are well equipped. And I know if you're part of a music team, you need people who know what is needed in music and how to bring it to pass. If you're part of a youth team, you know we need people who have experience in youth leading and know how to bring it to pass. And we won't have that unless we train up and give others opportunity. Part of leadership is training others to also be able to carry out the tasks that are needed. So Weems' book on church leadership and the development of vision, team, culture and integrity can have a great deal to teach us. Dr. Lovett Weems is a distinguished professor of church leadership in Washington, D.C., and he has some valuable insights to share on leadership. And if you'd like to find out more, you could listen to Lovett Weems and some of his insights on YouTube, and you'd find real value in that, I'm sure. Great and valuable insights that can be helpful to us. And as well, there's writings from Lovett Weems as well that can also be helpful to you. And there's interview and other resources that Lovett Weems has shared that'll be helpful to you. Often we grow through interaction with others, including scholars such as this, that I'm sharing the names with you. So if you've not written down already this name and this title, please write it down. Lovett Weems, Church Leadership. And if you've got time, the four aspects of leadership he sees as important: vision, team, culture, and integrity. He sees it important to have a vision of what God is calling you to and be able to encourage others towards that vision and to be able to articulate that vision clearly, to explain why it's important and how it can be achieved. To be able to build a team, to draw together others that can work together. To be able to build culture, that is, the ways we do things well, and also to develop integrity and accountability in what we do. Leadership is a group process that involves building a group of people and working with them to achieve the goals that we're setting out to do. Leadership involves being part of a body, part of the body of Christ, in which all the parts work together. And so we need to recognize the importance of working with all the different parts of the body, so as they work with one another and they work together. The head, the ear, the eye, the hand, all need to be able to work together. And we shouldn't be saying the eye to the ear or the ear to the eye, you're not the same as us. For the church to be effective and for your team to be effective, all of the parts need to work effectively well together. As leaders, it's sometimes difficult to trust everyone, and one of the challenges is to build up a sense of trust. One of the challenges in any group is that we often go through a cycle of moving from things going well to things not going well. And so often we begin, everyone thinks everything's going to go well. We form a group, and then challenges occur because there are differences in that group that become apparent. Bruce Tuckman is famous for developing the forming, storming, norming, performing model of groups. So let's briefly touch on Bruce Tuckman, stages of group formation. Bruce Tuckman, stages of group formation. I'll get you to write that down, please. Bruce Tuckman, stages of group formation. I'll make that larger so it's easier to see. And he says that whenever you start a new group with goals, the first thing you do is you form that group, you share the vision, the people come together, and initially you agree on the vision and goals and hopes and aims. But before long, because you have 10 or more people, all different, differences become apparent. And he calls this storming. That is, before long, differences lead to people expressing different ways of doing things. So you form a music group, you form a youth group, you've got goals, and you want to meet at 7 p.m. on Friday, but other people don't want to meet at 7 p.m. They want to meet at 5 p.m. or they might want to meet on Thursday. So you've got differences that occur. You want to focus on prayer and music, but they want to focus on games. And so differences from different people become apparent. So that's stage number 2. Stage number 1, you form the group. Stage number 2, there is storms that develop. And so what's the solution? Tuckman says that the solution is to develop norms. That is, to listen to and agree to what are the best ways to do things, to establish rules, to establish guidelines, to establish the best ways to do things. So norming, establish the norms. And ideally at the beginning, you might establish the norms by saying our youth group will meet at 7 p.m. Fridays. We'll include a mixture of prayers and games and music, and we're going to give, say, 30 minutes to the games. We're going to give, say, 15 minutes to the music. We're going to have a presentation. So if you establish what are the norms, that helps to resolve the conflicts. And you need to listen to the people because everyone will have different norms that they want. Team members will then start to trust each other and work together when the norms are well established. Write them down, communicate them. I meet with one group that used to meet at 11:30 on Sunday on the weekend, and the boss, the president, has now decided we will meet in 3:30 in the afternoon. None of us like it, but he said there's no parking and it's difficult to get there at 11:30, and so now we meet in the afternoon. And I think everyone's come round. He keeps reminding us, he communicates, and he says this is the time we are going to meet. He keeps explaining and saying this is the reason. He shares stories and he says this person couldn't get here at 11:30, now he can and he's happy. Storytelling is important as a leader. Share the stories that people share. If you can't form a norm and agree, you might go back to reforming and restorming. So it's important to develop the norms as stage 3, says Robert Tuckman. And he draws a diagram to illustrate this. Initially, we form the group, things are going well. Then we have difficulties. Things become sad. There's arguments and disagreements. But then as things improve, we return to the norm where we write down what we're doing, and then finally we perform well. Can I get everyone to copy down Robert Tuckman's model of forming, storming, norming, and performing?
Forming, norming, performing.
Yeah. Anyway, see as we go.
F-I-M-I-N-G. What I mean?
So has everyone written down this model? And if you don't form good norms, you'll go back to reforming, and storming, and some will leave and some will be angry. But if you can talk through and resolve the conflict, you'll develop good norms. So this is Robert Tuckman's stages of group development. And he says, when you've got good norms, then you can perform well. And so norming, then leads to performing, and things go well when it all unfolds well. As I said, Weems has some excellent insights, and Lovett Weems, in his book on church leadership, has excellent insights. And one of these is that he says that while authority can be given, leadership needs to be earned. That is, you can appoint a person. You can say this person is the youth leader, the music leader, this person is the pastor or the manager. You can say this person has a title. So you can give a person a title. However, people won't initially trust the person, and before they can become a good leader, they need to prove that they are trustworthy, capable, and competent. This is earned, and it's earned over time. So if you're given the title music leader, you will then say, we're going to meet. You'll then gather the people together. And how well you do at organising the people for that music gathering will earn trust or lose trust. Now, it's not just music ability, and you may not need a lot of music ability. It'll be things like be there on time, have a place to meet, encourage people, listen to people. All of these can help you to build the gathering and the trust. You need to show that you're trustworthy in terms of the time and the resources and the place and the encouragement and the listening, and that'll build it. As I say, it's not just music ability. Music ability can help. The same with building a youth leader. You'll arrange to meet for the youth meeting, you'll build a team, and then are you going to be on time? Have you got a good place? Are you going to encourage and listen? One of the things you can do is bring food, chocolate. So there can be other things that you can do, can't there? Bring music, good music,
Yes.
pray.
Good.
All of these things can help to build trustworthy. Show that you're capable. And if you're building a music team, youth team, have others who are also capable around you. You can't do it all alone. And leadership is earned as you show that you're competent and able to organise all things. Weems says being a leader means being able to administer and organise everything so that they're done just right. Being able to manage things and doing the right things. Having values, having caring and kindness. Know the names of people and use their names, and have ways of remembering their names if you can. I know one pastor, he would often greet me and he would say, "How are you, Sam? Come and sit down here." He'd treat me so well, I wanted to go back all the time because he treated me so well. These are leadership skills. Also, develop and articulate the vision. Encourage others and share the vision and say, we are excited about the music group and we're excited about your contribution to the music group. We're excited about the youth group and your contribution to the music. So motivate the people, all the people and the key people. Motivate them with a shared vision about what can be achieved and share it. Vision is necessary, says Weems. And why is the vision necessary? Because it lifts and encourages people to press forward. It keeps them motivated. Vision is necessary, commitment is necessary. If there's no vision, it's like having a map without a destination. But if you've got a vision, then there's a destination. We know where we're going. It's like having a ship with a rudder where you control where you're going. You say, this is our vision. We are going to be a youth group that's going to meet the spiritual needs of people. It's going to encourage them and build them up in their relationship with Jesus through engaging with key scriptures, through being encouraging and caring and listening to them and recognizing that they are a creation of God and that they have value. We are going to provide for them in a way that others have not provided for, and we are going to build them and encourage them and equip them so that they can flourish in every area of life. That's the sort of vision that we need. When you are in a fog and you can't see so clearly, you need instruments to see. Having a vision is like the instrument that helps us to see. Vision informs our identity while we're there. It forms our sense of community. It forms the sense of who we are. Vision is a picture of our preferred future, where we want to be, where we want to go. It's a gift of the eyes to see what is hard to see. What's it mean to be a good youth group, to be a good church, a good music group, a good women's group? Vision articulates this. Write it down. Let's take a few minutes now, and I would like you to write down what is the vision that you have for the group or groups you lead. What is that vision that you have? So can I get everyone to take a couple of minutes or a minute or so to write down what is the vision that you have for a group that you might lead? What's the vision that you have? When you've written that down, you might take a moment to just briefly share with the person next to you. Just tell them, this is the vision I have, and this is why I have it. You could even motivate them to join your vision. You could share with them and say, I'm excited about this. And you could see if you can get them excited about it as well. One of the key needs of leadership is to excite and articulate the vision and bring people with you towards the goals that you see as important. It's a gift of the eyes of faith to see the invisible, to know what is not yet fully known or experienced, to think that which has not yet been fully thought, to articulate that which has not yet been fully articulated, to experience that which has not yet been fully experienced, but to anticipate and to move into and engage with the new concepts that are just around the corner, just ahead, to get people excited about it. Now, of course, vision needs to be achieved, and you need to have what is needed to achieve and reach that vision. So if you've got a vision for an exciting youth group or children's group or women's group or sports group, you need to be able to articulate that vision. Or a volleyball group meeting on the block next door, articulate the excitement of that vision. It's a story through which one sees the world that's exciting and anticipates what is possible, what might be achieved. It's how we're called to fulfill our mission. Vision's like a magnifying glass that focuses our attention on a specific area that we hope to move towards. It's about a specific area that we want to focus on. Vision allows us to prioritize what we see as important. We're able to concentrate our efforts towards this common goal. John Maxwell talked about two Antarctic explorers who led two very different expeditions. So two men decided to go to the Antarctic to be the first there to the Antarctic. And the two men are Robert Scott and Roald Amundsen. And so these two Antarctic explorers wanted to reach the South Pole first. And one was from Norway and one was from England. And so Amundsen from Norway, he had a plan to arrive here and then to cross and to reach the south and then to complete here, whereas Scott set out. But there were real differences in what they set out to do. So Amundsen, he set out to go to the South Pole and then to travel home, and Scott also set out to go to the South Pole and travel home. Others like Shackleton have done the same. They set out to be the first to go to the South Pole. And it was a challenging expedition to travel all of that distance, Scott and Amundsen. And so it was challenging to cross the ice. And Amundsen had a lot of experience in that he had worked in the snow before and he really knew what he was doing. Scott, I don't think, was as well equipped, and Scott found real challenges there. So in 1911, 1912, Amundsen and Scott set out to reach the South Pole. Amundsen, he knew what was needed. He made sure all his people had the skills. He knew how cold it would be, how much food he'd needed. And Amundsen had worked out that dogs could be the most effective way to travel across the snow. So Amundsen had experience with dogs and dog sleds. And so he was able to build together these teams using dogs and dog sleds, and he practiced. So Amundsen practiced and he got very effective. He made sure that all his people were skilled skiers, ready to go. He checked all the dogs, and they were Eskimo dogs used to very cold supplies. He made sure that they had supplies ahead that would have enough food and extra food. He made all the dog sleds checked, and he made sure that they could move very fast. He developed the clothing that they would wear. It would be very cold. He developed the food that they would need. And so they had vitamins and they had all the food that they would need. And he had a single goal: reach the South Pole, be very organised, work together. he got the team together, and guess what happened? Ronald Amundsen succeeded in reaching the South Pole. However, Robert Scott, had decided that rather than use the dogs, he didn't think that was such a good idea. Robert Scott decided he would use a tractor because that was a new modern invention. And so Robert Scott tried these tractors, and he tried other ways to go. And then he decided that the men could pull the sleds. You don't need dogs. We are rough and we are tough, said Robert Scott. And so he got the people together and he said, look, we can do it. And he got them motivated, and they set off to walk to the South Pole. Anyone know what happened? They ran out of food and they started to starve. And they got cold and they started to freeze. And even though they tried pulling, they got more and more worn out. And his sleds didn't work as well. The motorised sleds broke down. He took some ponies, which weren't used to the cold, and they broke down. His clothing was not good. It became heavy and wet, and they froze. And the diet was insufficient, and they began to get exhausted because they didn't have food. Who of you might be a leader like that, not equipped? And we can still read Robert Scott diaries in which he writes about how his men slowly died in the cold from lack of food. And you can still read the diaries today of the failed leadership of Robert Scott, and you can still read about the successful leadership of Amundsen. So John Maxwell, in his book on leadership, tells us and reminds us about these two different types of leader. So John Maxwell, you may enjoy reading John Maxwell books on leadership. And these are the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is the name of the book by John Maxwell. And he mentions this example. You might want to remember that example. Weems says there are 6 functions of vision. And it's not enough just to have vision, as Amundsen reminds us. Vision alone is not enough. You need knowledge. You need equipment. You need experience. You need knowledgeable people who know what they're doing. You need to listen to others and learn from others. But you do need vision. And Weems says that vision is also important, in that vision energizes us and unites us. And so it's important to be able to articulate that vision that you have. It focuses us. It reminds us where we're going and why we're going there. John Maxwell says that vision tells us 3 things. It tells us where we're going. It tells us what we need to do to get there and how we can grow. Most importantly, what we need to know and do to get there. So it's not enough just to have vision. We need to know what we need to know, and we also need to know what do we need to do. And you can learn about what we need to do by listening and talking to others who've been there. So talk to other pastors, talk to other youth leaders, music leaders, and learn from them. Vision also sets some boundaries, and it reminds us that if we're setting out to do youth work and some older people come along, are we working with the older people or are we working with the youth? Vision also sets dreams for the future. and it sets lofty goals that we're setting out to achieve. Some Bible examples of vision include Nehemiah. And Nehemiah, in the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, saw that Jerusalem was in trouble because the walls were breaking down, and he had a vision to build the walls again. And so the book of Nehemiah encourages us that we can build again. And so Nehemiah, as you read, says that we need to rebuild the walls. And he prays and he encourages and he builds a team to rebuild the walls there in order that they might go forward and build the walls there. So Nehemiah was a great leader. And even today, if you visit Jerusalem, and I've visited Jerusalem and walked past some of the walls that Nehemiah built, and you can still see some of the walls that Nehemiah built over 2,500, 2,700, 600 years ago. So those walls are still there in Jerusalem that Nehemiah built all those years ago. Nehemiah is very encouraging in that Nehemiah, in terms of leadership, in each chapter, he shows leadership principles. In chapter 1, the importance of prayer. In chapter 2, the importance of vision and building a team. In chapter 3, the importance of being organised with teams and delegation. Chapter 4, being resilient and not giving up. Chapter 5, being compassionate and ethical. And chapter 6, being decisive and focused and not giving in to distractions. Chapter 7, being well equipped and equipping others with all the materials that they needed. Chapter 8, empowering and equipping others, including sharing of the law of God and spiritual teaching. Chapter 9, being humble and listening, but also being humble before God, praying and confessing and repenting. Being committed and carrying through, being a strategic planner in chapter 11, and being one who's able to bring people to celebrate together, being empowered together. So can you write down Nehemiah as an example of a godly leader and leadership principles? And you could look some of those up and you could find some verses on leadership. So verses on leadership in Nehemiah that can inspire us today include Nehemiah 2, verse 17 and 18. He saw the trouble they were in, but he looked to God. In chapter 2, verse 20, the God of heaven will give us success. He encouraged faith in God. In chapter 4 and 5, we don't fear God, but we look to God. And chapter 4, verse 9 and 14, our God will fight for us. So there's inspiring leadership verses in Nehemiah that you can find very encouraging. Other Bible passages to encourage us include Exodus, where Moses is a great leader, and then in chapter 18, Jethro is raised up and discipled. Many passages in the Gospels where Jesus shows leadership as well. So there's many examples there. So let's take our break now. We'll take. So let's just take. Well, actually, we'll continue on. We won't take our break. We'll take our break in maybe about 10 minutes. So I want now, can I get you all to write down James Montgomery Burns, and his book is Leadership. So it's James Montgomery Burns, and his book is Leadership. So can I get everyone to write that down?
Yes, I write it
And
down.
James Montgomery Burns says one of the most universal cravings of our time is a hunger and compelling for creative leadership. Can I get you to write that quote down? One of the most universal cravings of our time is a hunger for compelling and creative leadership. People want leadership,
From
right? So when you've written that down, we'll take our break. So I'll see you all in 10 minutes' time. So see you in 10
see you
minutes.
soon.
Thank you.
Yo, thank you. So